The car you see sitting next to me has been modified in a number of different ways. Everything from a K&N cold air intake to a Borla ATAK exhaust. The suspension has been changed quite a bit, the intercooler system, the shifter, it's all been changed. But we're not going to focus on each specific part. We're more curious in how this car rides, how it handles, how is it to drive on a daily basis. Well, I'm going to hop in the driver's seat and take you guys along with me and let you know exactly what I think. What's up everyone, I'm Brian Petty with Power Automedia, and today I'm driving, as you probably guessed, a 2016 Ford Focus RS. And I instantly had a problem with the car just walking up to it when I saw that RS badge. Don't get me wrong, it looks good, but it stands for the same thing it always does on every car since the beginning of time, which is relatively sterile. The 2016 Ford Focus Relatively Sterile actually looks pretty good on paper, and it needs to, because it has a lot of competition coming from Subaru and Mitsubishi and even Volkswagen. The 2016 Ford Focus Relatively Sterile actually doesn't look that sterile when you see the specs. 350 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque, and it weighs relatively the same as all of its competition coming from Subaru, Mitsubishi, and Volkswagen. 350 horsepower isn't a whole lot more than its competition, but 350 pound-feet of torque is a lot. And that's what makes this car so fun at basically any RPM and any amount of throttle. The turbo is really responsive. I mean really, really responsive. Most turbo cars are known for that little bit of what we call lag when you put the throttle down and the turbo has to take a second to respond, but this car responds like that. And the car that I'm driving today actually doesn't have a stock exhaust. It has a Borla ATAK exhaust on it, which makes it fairly comfortable to drive. It's not too loud, but when you hammer down, it still has the electronic actuator in the exhaust, so it opens up and unleashes. It reminds me a lot of what I would think a Tyrannosaurus Rex mating with a giraffe would sound. And it sounds pretty good. This car has 350 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're in the driver's seat, it's plenty. Now the braking power of this car coming into a corner is immense. And it makes sense because the brake rotors are nearly 14 inches in diameter. And when you put that into real world specs, the wheels on my 1995 Honda are 13 inches. So they're bigger. Now because this car has a lot of power and really, really good brakes to stop it, how does it do in the corners? Well, in the corners under speed, it handles beautifully. Oh wow, this car just feels good. It feels really good. The interior on the car has some pros and some cons. There's stuff that I like and there's stuff that's just kind of average. There's nothing terrible about it, there's nothing that I hate about it, but they could have done a little more. First off, I love the blue stitching on everything. I think that's a really, really nice touch that Ford did. And even though this car isn't that blue that some of them come with, I love all of the blue stitching. It's everywhere. There's blue stitching on the steering wheel, there's blue stitching on the seats, the e-brake handle, and the little cover. I mean, it's just everywhere, and I think it really brings the interior together nicely. When I first saw this car walking up, I knew exactly what it was. But for every day, driving down the street, they don't necessarily grab your attention. And if you're looking for a car that rips and breaks your neck to look at it, this probably isn't the car for you, but I think that it is very subtle and it looks good and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. The wing on the back is subtle, but you can tell there's a difference. The grille in the front is obviously different from a regular Focus, and it should be. The looks are relatively subtle, but they do the job. But when it comes to the exhaust and the engine and the way this thing drives, it's not subtle at all. Before now, I had never driven an RS. I had driven Evos, owned an Evo, driven STIs, owned an STI, driven Golfs, owned a GTI. And this car doesn't deserve the name relatively sterile. After driving it all day, I'd have to change that RS to relentlessly surprising, because every turn, every time I hit the gas, every time I hit the brakes, this car blows me away.